Hi, I'm coming to you again to talk to you about surviving the coronavirus quarantine. I sent out a request through my Facebook page and asked people what they wanted to hear about. And one of those was domestic violence and abuse. How do you respond to them during the coronavirus quarantine? So I want to remind you that abuse has three components: control, the person wants to control you; two, the person uses power to do that; and three, when you complain about it or say, "This isn't right, it hurts, I don't like it," the person disregards your feelings. So those are the components of abuse. Now, domestic violence is another term we use for abuse. Often people equate domestic violence with physical violence, but it can also be emotional and verbal abuse, which can in fact be very, very hurtful, very damaging, and very toxic. So let's go through first the kind of the situation that we have with the coronavirus and how it might relate to abuse. We know that all of us are under tremendous stress, not knowing the future, the fear of getting the virus, the fear of the financial devastation from being off of work, the additional stressors of different family members, and then of course being stuck in the home during the quarantine, being around the person and each other all the time, even in a completely functional and healthy family, can cause increased stress. When people get stressed, they often get irritable, they get frustrated, their tempers are short, but we're going to go through how abuse comes out during the coronavirus. But first, some of the myths and truths about abuse. The first one is that the abuse is due to the coronavirus. Now, the truth is, there are increased stressors with the coronavirus, but they do not cause a person to be abusive. The abuse comes from a belief system, the belief system that the person has the right to control you, the right to use power over you, and the right to disregard your rights and your feelings. So the coronavirus does not cause, I don't care how much stress you're under, does not cause a person to actually be abusive. That comes from within the person's thinking and the person's mentality about the relationship. The second myth is that you can't set boundaries because we're in this quarantine and our options are limited. So the truth is that yes, you would have to take the additional factors into consideration when you were thinking about setting boundaries, and that's always what we do when we set boundaries, is we look at the reality of what we're dealing with and the choices that are available. However, that does not mean that you cannot find some option to deal with the abuse. And let me say this, if you are dealing with physical abuse that is actually putting you in a dangerous, unsafe situation, then you have options, even including calling 911, getting the police involved, and having the person removed. So there are options. They might be a little more limited. They might be a little scarier. However, that doesn't mean that you need to ever tolerate the abuse. The third myth is that the coronavirus makes it worse. Yes, the coronavirus does cause stress. It does cause everyone to be under that, but that doesn't make it worse. Think about how we make choices with our behavior. And when we make those choices, we have options. And if you watch an abusive person, most of the time, that person is not abusive in all relationships, just in the relationships where the person believes that control and power belongs to him or her. So the fourth one is that your actions caused the abuse. Now, you might be under increased stress. You might be thinking, but I'm reactive, I'm cranky, I'm frustrated, I'm demanding, I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And yes, you've got to take responsibilities for your actions, but you don't ever cause anybody to be abusive to you. The abuse comes from the person's own actions, the person's own belief system, and the person looking at his or her own options of how to respond. Now, the thing about the coronavirus is, if you're seeing an escalation of the abuse, what I want to say to you is that it does not cause the abuse. It does not make a person be abusive to you. But this is just one other opportunity for you to see the truth about your relationship, for you to see that when things do get stressful, and believe me, there will be other times in life that you are dealing with additional stressors and problems. It's part of living. And if you see that that person in those types of situations escalates abuse, then you need to see the truth about your relationship and about what is going on. The other thing is that I would say it is highly likely, almost guaranteed, that this is not the first time that this person has been abusive. So this is another opportunity for you to sit back, detach, and look at the truth about what is going on in your relationship, to see it for what it is, to realize that you are dealing with somebody who is abusive to you, who is willing to be abusive, and who is not willing to look at that behavior and stop that behavior, and to look at the truth about how damaging it is to you. Because abuse victims are in situations where they do this little pattern. The abuse happens, it's kind of shocking, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm dealing with this again. And it gets really, it's bad, and you think, oh, this is horrible, I can't deal with this. And then there's a pattern. It kind of ebbs and gets better, and it's not so bad. And then you think, oh my gosh, I must have been crazy. What's wrong with me? What makes me think that this is so bad? This person's not that bad right now. In fact, this person may be nice. We often call that in abuse the honeymoon period, the time where the person gives you flowers or is nice to you, or everything gets back to normal. What an abuse victim does is doubt himself or herself and say, I must have made a bigger deal about that than I should have. This person really isn't that bad. And I'm going to say this to you. When you are in a situation where somebody is abusive and is not abusive, it is not an either or. You are not in an abusive relationship, not in an abusive relationship. You're not with somebody who can be nice and who can be intensely mean and vindictive and harsh and controlling and abusive. You are with somebody who is both. Somebody who can do those things to you and who can also have periods of nice. In counseling, I would often take those and write them on a piece of paper, and I would put good characteristics, bad characteristics. And I would talk to the person and I'd say, because I could tell they were doing the either or. This person is either nice or this person is either abusive. And I would say to them, this is the crazy making part. The person's nice, the person's abusive. The person's nice, the person's abusive. And often an abusive person knows in the nice periods to give you what you want, to give you what you need, because that's when you say to yourself, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. So I take these lists, the bad and the good, and I take a pen and I draw a circle around and I say, this is the person, the bad and the good are together. So if you're going to have the nice, you also get the bad. So the reality of your life is that you are in an abusive relationship. It's not the person can be nice to me, and that means I'm wrong to doubt myself. So look at the reality. Now, if you're in the midst of the coronavirus and this person is doing abusive things, like I said, another opportunity for you to look at the reality that you are in fact in an abusive relationship, and an abusive relationship is toxic. Toxic means to cause harm, and abuse causes harm. So just because we're in the midst of the coronavirus does not mean that you can't face the reality of the abuse and begin to look at it and say, what is the reality of what I'm dealing with, and is this right for me? Is this how I need to live? Often, most of the time, in abusive situations, it takes a while to get to a point where you feel strong enough to leave. So in this situation, I would say use this as a time to face the reality, to face the truth, to get out of denial, and to see the truth about what's going on. Another thing that I often recommend to abuse victims is to keep a journal. And you write in the journal the very, very specifics of the abuse, the things that were said, the things that were done, the crazy making stuff. Put them in the journal and then keep them. Because when the person goes back to being nice, you need to go back and see the reality that this person is capable of doing those really ugly, mean, harmful things, not just the nice. So take this time to begin to get a clearer picture of what's going on. If there is physical violence in the relationship and you are in danger, be careful, but get help and get support, because that is not something that you should live in. But be careful about ever leaving somebody who is physically abusive when that person knows it, because that's when it can get really violent and dangerous. So get help, get counsel, which is available to you even during this time, because many counselors are seeing clients through Skyping and Zooming and things like that, but there is help for you, and there are domestic violence centers. So just take care of yourself, and like I said, use this time as an opportunity to see the truth and not to keep in denial. So, okay, I will see you again, and next time we're going to talk about how to respond to an abuser. Okay, all right, thank you.